Yeah, so just going to start by giving a little bit of context about why we ran this hack day and the motivation behind it. So we have this dream of where we want to get to with DBT, and that is to have a workflow in place that sort of mimics the test-driven development you see in software engineering. So we want to get to a state where our normal development workflow is writing tests, then writing code, and then passing those tests, and that this is how we develop models. However, as I'm sure you are aware, doing this takes time. So whenever we want to go through these steps, we have to write sources, we have to write models, test, docs, we merge it, and we need to run it. So what we find is that trying to adopt this sort of test-driven development approach becomes really complicated. And it takes a lot longer than it has to in order for us to be able to adopt it properly. So what we wanted to think about was, what parts of this can we automate? We want to be able to automate the parts of writing the source, of writing the models, of writing tests. All of these things have elements of them where we can cut out some of the overhead, and we can make these things a lot leaner and a lot easier on the people actually doing the developing. And that's why we had our hack day. So we got a bunch of people together from various disciplines, analysts, engineers, developers, everyone coming together and working on some of these really interesting projects. What's really cool working here is that everyone wants to solve pretty much every problem. So we had a very long list of things we could be working on, but we sort of distilled that into 3 different things and 3 different teams to work on them. And what we achieved was, as I said, 3 different teams, and we're going to go through each of these in turn. So first off, we had Loki, which is a command line interface for DBT development that makes it a lot easier and smoother of a process. Team 1 is something that Liam's going to be talking about. For Team 2, we're going to be talking about powerful docs with little overhead. So how can we make the most of the documentation feature without adding too much overhead? And I'm going to be having that talk. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to be talking about how Akshay, Leo, Luke, and Sri built a solution for running DBT cloud jobs from Slack, which is super cool. And yeah, I think with that, we're going to kick it over to Liam, who's going to get started.
Okay, I will just present my screen. Cool. So hopefully you should see this. Again, stop me if not. So I'm now here to talk about Loki. So what is Loki? Everyone should know that Loki is a Norse god, but luckily for us, he also moonlights as a DBT workflow command line tool. So why did we go about making Loki? Well, the problem we had in front of us was that we want to make creating DBT models, docs, and sources as efficient as possible. So this is the problem. So why do we want to do this? Well, DBT has great functionality. It allows us to test documentation. You can build schemas with the documentation plus macros. But the reason why we need a tool is it comes with, it takes time and effort to write these. Often the work is repeated. We have to type out YAML, all the indentations, making sure they're correct. And often this data is actually, we use BigQuery, is available in BigQuery. It's also hard to standardize and enforce rules when it's people typing, trying to speed up things. They may not follow the rules you put. And we wanted to eventually increase time for the analysts to write SQL and not config. This would mean that we'd actually make more DBT models and better decisions in our business would grow. So I'm just going to sort of show you a quick diagram of what I envisioned the Loki workflow to be like, particularly focusing on models and sources. So all I wanted is a person to come to this tool and then make a choice. Are you sourcing something or are you building a model? And if you're going to build a source, well, that means it exists in BigQuery. So we talk to BigQuery, and then we would print out your schema for the database data set and tables you wished. The other option is you come in and you want to build a model. Now, model is a bit more, there's a few more questions that need to be asked there, such as what columns, what tests you want to add, any documentation. and then that should also be able to be generated from this. So this is sort of like how we envisioned it. So now I'm going to show you some demos. So I filmed myself doing this. Hopefully this works. Okay, so this one is for the model. So I hope you can all see it. I'll make a big screen. There we go. So you're working through like a wizard here, and you're trying to say where you want it saved, what you want it called, what type, and you're just sort of filling out information that would be helpful for it. So what the name is, a model, would you like to add columns, what is the description, would you like to add tests, and what type of tests, and also you can set severity, and then after that you can also set further attributes in this case, and you can just say no, would you like to add other tests, I'd like to add another column. So this is trying to show that we can add different columns with different values. So I'd not like to add another column. And then this is what it prints out. I will try and freeze it on that last screen. So it prints out a valid YAML that we can send up to DBT. And this can be done sort of en masse with a few different questions and loads of different tests added. So an example of how you source it, this sourcing is a lot quicker. So again, you enter in the same point. The wizard is sort of like the one that steps you through. There is quick routes into it. So again, I'd like to save it in the test file. And then what I like to call it. A source. Now this then asks me, do I want it in the right project? Because you have default projects. What data set? And then that's it done. Hopefully I will. So now here, again, we have valid YAML for DBT, and it includes all the schema for the clicks and the columns. And obviously if there's descriptions in there, it will pull out the information there. So that's that. Now, does this, after doing all this, does it actually make it easier? I would say it does, because it makes sourcing BigQuery datasets as simple as knowing the project and dataset. I don't have to switch between pages to make sure that we have the correct column names and values. And it reduces building model YAMLs down to a few questions. It can also include documentations of columns and testing options. It also allows you to specify rules that you want in place, like how you want, is severity always explicit rather than just implicit? So what's next for Loki? Obviously it's built in over the last couple of weeks, but what I want to do is get people to actually use it. So in our company, we're trying to get people to use it, add the ability to create and edit documentation of columns. This is something that Ollie will be talking about later. At the minute, this only writes. We want to be able to edit existing files. And why not go further? There's another bit, that config block at the start of every file, which could be automated. And that's something we're working on now. At the minute, because this is internal, we have bespoke config to Loki. So can we pull that out? At the minute, it's built for BigQuery, it's built for our own business needs, and can we pull these out into some sort of config you apply to Loki? And then why not open source? Why can't we get it out so other people can hopefully feel the benefit of this? Cool. So that's my end of my presentation. I'd like to save questions to the end of all the presentations, and you can join the breakout room hosted by myself and Matt Ferry. That's the ID, but I believe that there will be links will be shared around later. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Cool. I'm jumping in again because I am next. Let me just share my screen. So you can hopefully see my screen now. As always, stop me if not. And what I'm going to talk about is the documentation, as Leah mentioned. So we want to try and get the most out of the documentation feature that's available within DBT. But as mentioned before, there are some caveats. I'm just going to walk through the beginning of this. What you can see on the screen now is just a normal manual schema file. We've written out a model, we've written out columns, we have the descriptions of the columns, all fairly standard stuff. However, a feature that we think is really cool and we're trying to make the most of is the use of docs blocks. So in case you're not familiar, docs blocks look something like this. It's a markdown file where you can define an identifier for a snippet of text that you can then reference in other places. So in this example, we can use a doc block like this. So I have this column that's called account ID. And instead of actually writing out what an account ID is every single time I have a column that's called account ID, I could just reference this block that I've already written out that stores the definition of an account ID. And this is really cool because this means that if this definition changes in the future, which they're prone to do, then we just need to update this little snippet and everything updates. It's also really cool because it makes sure that we have standardized documentation and we describe things in the same way, wherever they're used. So that's really cool. However, there are some problems with this. So these doc blocks, as I mentioned before, need to be stored in markdown files. And let me change this. So in this repo, this very small trial repo, you can see that there's a doc block over here and there's one over there. And let's say that I'm working on a model and I want to find out where I can find the doc block that relates to it. So if I want to write out something in this model, if I want to find the domain or the URL path or the bounce rate, I need to basically search through the entire repo and try and find out if there is a doc block defined for that already, or I can write my own doc block at risk of creating duplication. And we've had both of those issues. So what we find is that given that it's so difficult to find the descriptions, the doc blocks and the correct descriptions to use, we're not actually seeing a lot of use of them. Most of our repo at the moment is documented using these manual descriptions. We also have the issue of when we do create doc blocks that we have lots of doc blocks that are very similar. We have, I think, 2 or 3 different definitions of a session ID for one, and they should all refer to the same thing. But the problem is that you have someone writing this out, they can't find what they're looking for, so they create a doc snippet because they're trying to be helpful, but then the next person can't find that one, etc. So there's a real problem of trying to organize these blocks of docs. And that's sort of what we've been trying to address. So the first thing that we identified is that we need to gather all of these things. So everything that's in this file and files like that, we need to put them into one single place. And I'm going to try and run this demo, which should hopefully work. So again, the first thing we need to do was pull everything together into a single place. And we did that by building a Python function that scrapes the entire repo, picks out all of the markdown files that have docs in the name, and then just puts them in the same place. So now we got a single file with all of these blocks together. That's a great start. I can now, if I want to find something about visits, I can just do a Control F and I can find visit. However, we still have the problem of me finding 5 different entries of visit, even in this very, very tiny example. So it's a step in the right direction, but it's not quite good enough. What we then thought about doing is, can we make this easier? So we built an object in Python to try and interact with the documentation. And one of the cool things about this is that we have a function that can find things. So if I were to search in this documentation for the word visit, it's going to spit out the name and the description of all of the docs that are related to it. So as you can see, it's picked out visit ID, visit date, and visits, and the description of each. So that's really cool. That's a huge step forward. We've also tried to address the issue of multiple different docs entries that are very similar. So let's say that I was trying to add a new doc snippet and I'm trying to put in the description identifier of the visit. Now, if you've spotted it, you might see over here that we already have something that's very similar. We have column visit ID, which is the unique identifier of the visit. So ideally, we wouldn't want to add another column, another doc block that is just identifier of the visit. And what this function will do is it will scan the repo, it will find things that are similar. And in this case, it says that the validation failed because there is already an entry that is unique identifier of the visit. So that's a way for us to control the issue of duplication within the docs. And now let's try and do a live demo of this. So as Liam just showed, we have this Loki wizard that I'm going to try and run. I'm just going to run through these fairly quickly because this is not what we're looking for. So I've just created a model and I want to add a column. So let's say I want to add a column. The column is called visit. Actually, let's go with visit ID. And now when I press enter here, it actually automatically picks out this from the documentation, says that, hey, this looks like visit ID. Do you want to use this description? And yeah, of course I do. It's perfect. So I'm just adding that in. And let's say I want to add another column that is visit page. Let's go with that. Now this doesn't exist. The function still tries to find the closest match, which is visit date, which is obviously not correct. So we're not going to use that. So I'm just going to say the visit page as my description of the column. So I've just put in this manually. However, when I press enter here, then I have the option of adding this. So let's just add this to the documentation. That's really cool. And you can see it updating in real time here. So now we have this extra doc snippet that is column visit page. So we can start keeping track of them. And if I were to try and add something that already exists, as I mentioned before, it's going to invalidate it. And last but not least, we have some additional functionality where if I want to add something else, let's say I just want to add visit. But I don't like this option. This is not the option I was going for. I'm just going to search the entire repo for visit and see, okay, these are the options I have to choose from. So let's say it was actually visits that I wanted. And then that's added. So now I've created this model. I'm using all of these doc snippets. I'm avoiding duplication. I'm able to add things dynamically to the documentation. And it's making this whole documentation process so much easier and so much powerful and so much more accurate, which is really cool. Of course, there's next step that we want to get to. So if you look over here, we want to be able to get to the level where we can write out composite descriptions using these doc blocks. So something that you can see, oops, I'm in the wrong place. Over here, so we want to be able to write out this essentially, where we can combine both custom text and these doc snippets. And we also want to build in the functionality to edit and update these doc snippets from Loki. Now this one's a bit trickier because that also means that we need to update all of the schema entries that references these doc snippets. So that's the step that we need to solve. But I think already now I've been using it when I've been developing over the past week. And last time I built a model with 25 columns and 23 of them were assigned automatically. And I was super happy because it's saving so much time and it's just making this a breeze to work with. And yeah, that's really cool. This is the end of the demo. As Liam mentioned, we're going to have questions at the end. So I'm just going to pass it over to Akshay.
Shri, I'm going to be presenting. Thanks, Luke. So I want to talk about a bot that we worked on to democratize the functionality of DBT. So what is democratizing the functionality? So a small example is for the people to have an ability to launch an ad hoc job whenever they want to probably run a backfill kind of thing. And why do we want to democratize the functionality of DBT? I think to answer that question, we need to understand a couple of things. One is our team structure, and the other one is our architecture, data architecture. Next slide, please, Luke. So this is a rough architecture of our data platform. As you can see, we have data coming in from multiple sources, and we rely heavily on DBT for our transformations. DBT is hosted in DBT Cloud, and then we also rely heavily on DBT scheduling to run these jobs. Next slide, please. And coming to the team composition, our data team is very strong. We have a very strong data analyst team. We have 16 data analysts, but we only have 2 data engineers, 1 data operations, and 1 data scientist. As you can see, all of our data analysts are very versed with writing code in DBT, and we have a lot of requests coming into the data operations on on submitting some ad hoc jobs onto DBT. So we do not have enough, the data operations team doesn't have enough bandwidth to deal with these requests on a daily basis. So if you can go to the next slide. So let's go through the frequent requests that we get for data ops on DBT. So we are constantly writing code on DBT, and we usually end up adding new columns. So we need to do historic backfills or full refreshes or schema changes. Unfortunately, these things require creation of custom job in DBT Cloud, one job to do a backfill or full refresh. Also, in some cases, this needs admin level permissions on DBT Cloud. So to set up a job on DBT Cloud, let's go through the process in the next slide. So this is a typical process that we go through to submit a job inside the DBT Cloud. And as you can see, we have different environments for production development, and we have targets. So there are a lot of things that can go wrong while setting up this job. So basically, these are different reasons that we wanted to create a bot to submit with these predefined parameters into production. So what does this bot look like? Let's go through the simple architecture of this bot in the next slide. So we chose Slack as our platform because it is something that people use on a daily basis, and we are restricting this bot to a single channel so that people have audience whenever they submit jobs to the DBT Cloud, and we have some place to look at to trace back if something goes wrong in the DBT Cloud. We use Slack Events API to submit requests to the GCP Cloud function. In GCP Cloud function is something like Lambda functions, equivalent to Lambda functions in AWS. And this is where our logic is residing. And we use Cloud function to submit requests to the DBT API, which is hosted to the DBT hosted in DBT Cloud. We respond back from the Cloud function to the Slack using Slack API to show the user that we submitted the job, or if we can help them or not. In the next slide, Luke will be showing you a little demo of how this bot works.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. What can go wrong in a live demo? Nothing. As you can see here, Sri mentioned this only works under one specific channel. We've limited it to that. And it also accepts just two commands. That's dbt run and dbt test. So I'm just going to mention the bot. And if I say something like, can you help me? And sometimes it can take 5 to 10 seconds maybe to get a response, but it's still so much quicker than manually creating a job. As you can see, didn't use any of the specific commands. So let's go again. Let's do dbt cloud, dbt run. Let's specify a model, and that will be test. In regards to the duplicate response here, Sri is going to mention that in the next slide. So let's open this up. We've got a link to our run. Cool. And as you can see, this is the run it's created. It's just going through the appropriate steps, which we'll see in just a second unfold. They should be good. There you go. So it's just running. You can see here just on the trigger, there's my name. I triggered the job, so you can see who's triggering these. Over at the job, you can see here, it was triggered by Slack. And then this is also the command that I just run as well. So if I quickly just pop into that and go to the settings. And this is the page that Sri showed you guys in an earlier slide. And as you can see, it's already configured, just so much easier than just running a single command in the Slack bot. So let's just run back here. And hopefully in a second, we are going to get success. Boom, there we go. Easy as that. Cool, Sri, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks for the demo, Luke. So that is our bot. It makes our workflow super easy. It's just a matter of submitting a command to the bot, and the Slack takes care of everything else. the future, this is some of our opportunities that we're looking forward to work on. Something, so currently we do not have the mechanism to, the Slack bot doesn't wait for the job to finish. So we want to build in something to monitor the job and report back to the user on success or failure. And then the other thing, as you might have seen, there are a couple of responses for one command. So there's an issue. Basically the Slack request waits for only 3 seconds, and if you don't respond back to the request within 3 seconds, it's gonna consider the message as a failure and resend the message. In that case, we are responding back twice for 2 messages. So we need to improve the latency in responding to Slack, probably using PubSub or rewrite in JavaScript and respond in a synchronous way. And obviously, as a lot of users running these jobs, we will end up having a lot of clutter on the dbt cloud interface. So we also want to tidy up the jobs in the dbt cloud. Next slide, Luke, please. So that's our little bot. If you have any questions, please follow us to our breakout room after these presentations. And we are 3, Leo, Luke, and Akshay, who worked on this one. Looking forward to meet and listen to all the questions you guys have. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Tree. I'm gonna take over again and just do a quick recap of where we're at. So this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to improve the way of writing sources, models, tests, docs, and running it. This is sort of how the teams line up with those goals. So with Loki, we have writing sources, models, and tests. With the documentation, obviously writing docs, and then the dbt Slack bot for running the jobs.